Okay, so obviously I'm not here today. I'm at a cross-country meet, um, but I have some really important information that I wanted to give to you so that you can start working on your short story and you don't waste a day of work. So we are going to start working on our short stories today officially, and we're going to start what's called the Writer's Workshop. So just to remind you, your due date for this is going to be October 17th. It's going to be due at 10 p.m. that night. So you'll have October 17th to put final touches on your short story. But I do need to tell you that while I love you as a class and I care about your health and well-being, there will be no extensions and there will be no excuses. So you need to put the time into managing what you're doing in class. So when I give you class time to work on it, you need to use it and you need to be working outside of class hours as well. This is a big project and you need to adhere to internal deadlines so that you can meet the final deadline of October 17th at 10 p.m. Again, no extensions and no excuses. So if Schoology doesn't work or if your computer crashes, that's not going to be an acceptable excuse for you turning in your work late or not at all. All right, so we're going to be starting the story with brainstorming. So if you remember from the rubric when I explained it to you, I let you know that part of your grade, Criterion B, requires that you engage with the writing process. So that means you need brainstorming that is measurable and that I can assess, and that you need drafts that I can also see that you've improved. So if you've done all your brainstorming in your head, that is not enough. The brainstorming needs to be done on a paper. So you can either do your brainstorming in your journal, you can do it on papers that you keep and take pictures of, or you can do it on computer. I don't care how you do it, it just needs to be done. So the first thing that you need to do for your brainstorming for your story is to identify a topic. So it doesn't matter what topic you choose, but I have some advice to give to you in choosing your topic. So the biggest piece of advice that I have is to write what you know. So in writing what you know, the writing will come easier to you. If you are a teenage boy who has never interacted with a teenage girl, it does not make sense for you to write from the perspective of a teenage girl because you do not understand them or what they are going through. It does make sense for you to write from the perspective of a teenage boy. So if you don't know about Africa and you've never been there and you know nothing about it, maybe don't write about Africa and African culture. When you write about what you know, what it allows you to do is write with authenticity. So your characters will say and do things that seem true to life and true to someone who has gone through or lived through that situation. The setting will seem authentic to someone who has visited it before. Writing with authenticity is important. So when you're finding your topic, what I'm going to ask you to do is to make a list of the things that you really care about. So I had class today, and some of the things on the list were colors or things that people were interested in. That's great. All of those things can go into your story, but think about things that are a little bit bigger. Like, for instance, I had a girl and she had on her list jazz music and deaf, and she had some of her favorite colors and foods, and she couldn't quite figure out how to put it together. But with a little bit of probing into those topics, she was able to find an idea for a story that really worked for her. Okay, so some of you might be thinking to yourself, but wait a second, John Green is an author and he wrote The Fault in Our Stars, and that's about a young girl who has cancer. John Green is neither a girl nor has had cancer. Well, that's okay. You can write about what you don't know, but if you're going to do that, you have to research, and you have to research extensively. I know I've had some of you ask me, can I write about drug addiction or can I write about abortion? And I say to that, sure. You can write about drug addiction and you can write about abortion as a short story, but if you're going to do that, you have to research it. You can't just assume you know what someone is going through, and you can't just assume you know how someone would react or what they would feel. You need to look at firsthand experiences, you need to research laws, you need to do a lot of extra work. And if you want to do that, that's fine. But writing what you know might be easier for you at this stage. Because even if you do research, the expectation is that you still write with authenticity. So, of course, with me, if I was going to write about something that I know, I might write about running, or I might write about veganism, or I could write about being a teenager, I could write about being a college student or an adult. I know all of those things, and I could write with authenticity about them. So you're going to brainstorm and find your topic. Then, so when we read short stories, what I want you to think about is how we often consider who the author was and the time period that he or she was writing in. We think that those ideas of who he or she was and the time he was writing in is important, and it influences the story. So why then would who you are not influence how you write? I'm not saying that you have to write a story about a Korean teenager living in Korea, but maybe if you moved from one culture to the other, you could write about someone, even if it was fantasy, you could write about someone who's experiencing loss from a move. You still know that it's working with what you know and who you are, but it doesn't have to be so on the nose. So work with who you are, not against it. It may not seem like it, but you have a lot of really great life experiences that you can draw from to write your story. Okay, so then what you're going to do is identify your genre. So there are a lot of different genres of fiction that you can choose from, and if you click on this little link here, which the presentation is in Schoology, it's a link to a SparkNotes breakdown, and it's kind of funny, but it does break down a lot of different genres for you. I have a feeling that most of you are probably going to write realistic fiction because that's what you know best, but you have the choice that you can write whatever you like. So if you really like romance and realistic fiction, but maybe you think you might want to write a horror story, write down all three of those genres that you're interested in for your brainstorming. You don't have to identify which one you want to do right now, but put the ones that you're interested in and see if any of the topics that you identified when you do your brainstorming fit naturally into one of those genres. Okay. So then what you're going to do, so you're going to have so far 2 things for brainstorming, and there's going to be 4 total. So the first 2 things were genre and I can't remember, whatever. But the third thing you're going to do is identify your premise. So the premise is the concept that's going to drive the plot. And right now that doesn't make sense, but once I tell you what goes into the premise, it will. So the premise is a statement. And in that statement, you identify who the protagonist is, where the setting is, and the crisis that the protagonist will face. So, for instance, let's say we have the character of Christy. So Christy is our protagonist. She is a young Korean teenager in my F block. So Christy, we've already identified that who she is as a character. The setting is Korea for right now, but the crisis is that her parents are moving and she's being forced to leave all of her friends and everything she knows behind to move to Ireland. So that's the crisis that the protagonist is going to face. So that premise is going to drive my entire plot. So it's just going to be a very short statement in which you identify the protagonist, the setting, and the crisis. Okay? So that's going to be part of your brainstorming as well. Then what you're going to do is you're going to develop that protagonist. Now you might already have some of this in your journal, but if you do, you can use that. If you don't, you're going to do it now. So when you develop your protagonist, what you want to make sure that you remember and do is to make them true to life and not a stock character, like we talked about when we were studying character for our analysis of short stories. So on the side right here, I found this chart online, and I think it does a really good job of telling you how to create a character that is not a stock character. So you can just go down through the 9 questions, and if you can answer those for the character that you're developing, it will make them more true to life. So who are the people that are important to their life? And it doesn't have to just be good important, it could be good, it says bad, or horrifying. So what are their dreams? What do they regret? How do they see themselves? What locations are important to them? What's their relationship with food? So that seems like a very silly and like inconsequential detail, but it's those little details that you identify as part of their character that really make them seem true to life. So how are they with money? Are they emotional or logical? A very good marker of emotional or of their personality. And are they spiritual? So these are some guide questions you can answer, and you should probably answer and develop more than that. So you definitely want to take the time before you start writing to plan out and map who you think your character will be. Okay? So that brainstorming is going to be part of your homework. You should easily finish that during class time. The other part of your homework is going to be finishing what is called the zero draft. So the zero draft is called the zero draft because it's before the first draft. So it's not even the first draft, it's the zero draft. And so what distinguishes the zero draft from the first draft is that the zero draft should just be flowing quickly and should be continuous writing. You should never stop to edit, and you should pretty much never stop writing. So if you get stuck on a part, like you're writing and you know that you really want to have this scene in which there's a pie eating contest and something really important happens in it, but you just can't figure out how you want it to be, you would just add in pie eating contest and then move on. Maybe you know you want the character of Christy to win the pie eating contest. So you say pie eating contest, Christy wins, and then you move on to the next part. So if you get stuck, you move on and you keep writing. The goal is that you write for the entire time. So what it's also called is focused free writing. We've practiced free writing in our journals, but this is for much longer and it's focused on what you want your story to be. So the great thing about the zero draft is that it is zero pressure. So it's a really good way for you to battle writer's block. I know that with me as well, and many writers, when you have to sit down and write something, you just can't start and you get writer's block. So the zero draft is a way to help ease that pressure and to make it so you can get something started. So with the zero draft, you can actually then convert that into your first draft. You can use pieces of it, or if you decide that it's terrible, you can just not use it at all. Hopefully you don't do that. So the zero draft is going to be a really good start for your writing. So as you get to start your writing, I wanted just to remind you that this writing process is going to be difficult. I don't think any of you are going to find it easy. All of you are going to fail in some parts of this, but you have to be willing to try and fail and keep trying. Your zero draft is going to be a mess. Your first draft is probably going to be bad, but each draft that you do will get better and better. So I just wanted to point out that writing is hard, and it's hard for everyone, and it's not just hard for you because you're in 10th grade. Stephen King, one of the most famous writers of modern times, openly discusses how hard he finds writing sometimes and how he's faced writer's block and the challenges that come with it. So please don't get discouraged when it's hard. Just keep going and push through it, because what you're doing might actually be good when you go back and look at it. Okay, so your homework for next class is when you come in on, what is tomorrow? Tomorrow's Wednesday. So when you come in on Friday, what I expect for you to have is evidence of brainstorming. Like I said, I don't care if it's on the computer, I don't care if it's on paper or in your journal, but I need to see evidence of brainstorming for your topic, the genre, the premise, and the character. And that needs to be substantial brainstorming. It shouldn't just be one word for each thing. The other thing that you need to do is the zero draft. So I expect to see a complete, it can't really be complete, but evidence of a zero draft for next class. So what you're going to do for me is you are going to actually do a screen recording of yourself writing the zero draft for 1 hour. So if you don't want me seeing all your little notifications popping up, I suggest that you turn Wi-Fi off. And I'm going to show you quickly how you're going to do that. So when you do a screen recording, what you'll do is you'll come up to the little finder here and you'll put in QuickTime Player. And my QuickTime Player is already recording. You can see I'm doing a screen recording too. So hopefully this doesn't mess mine up. So what you'll do is you'll go to File, and you'll go to New Screen Recording right here. So you'll click New Screen Recording, and a little box will pop up, and you'll click the circle with the red in the middle of it, and it'll start recording your screen just like I'm doing now. You don't have to have, I suggest you probably turn the microphone off so that I don't hear everything that you're doing, but I would like to see evidence of 1 hour of continuous writing for your zero draft. Yeah, your zero draft. And when you're done, you're going to click this button, this right here, to finish the video, which I'm going to do now. So for the rest of class, I need you working on your brainstorming. You can start working on your zero draft. Make sure you record it. I will ask for evidence of that, and you will get self-management grade for that, and it goes into evidence for what you've done for your story. Okay, have a good class.